Welcome to a More Beautiful World podcast with Susyn Renee, a place for those of us with the desire to expand our consciousness, tap into higher vibrations of love, and to connect into a community where together we can make the world a more beautiful place. I'm so eager to share with you what I've learned on my journey in discovering how we're all connected and how what we do for one, we do for us all. Here, I'll be sharing my own experiences, knowledge, and expertise for how you can heal, transform, and ascend your being so that together we can create the more beautiful world we all know is possible. Well, hey, tribe. I hope you're all doing so well today. I am so excited to be back for another episode because today we are going to be talking about the 5 elements perspective, which is an overview of energetics. And really, we're going to be digging in to how to connect your emotions to your physical body and how your physical body is connected to your emotions. So, what is the 5 elements perspective in traditional Chinese medicine? What exactly is that? It really is at a high level of a teaching of how everything's connected. And we're going to focus today specifically on how our emotions are connected into our physical bodies. So I want to cover today how what you're feeling emotionally is tied into what you're experiencing physically, and how often as well some of our physical ailments that we experience, you can look at healing those physical ailments by focusing on the emotional component and by releasing and working through emotions that are stuck in the physical body. The more that you understand how everything is connected in your body, mind, and spirit, the more knowledge and wisdom that you have to navigate through your healing and transformation journey. And knowing what emotions need to be looked at, that are holding you back from your healing and transformation, when you know that, you can give them the attention they need in order to be worked through and resolved. And with energetics, with the 5 elements perspective we're going to talk through today, you can learn how to both heal your physical ailments by working on your emotional needs, as well as using your emotions to navigate you on what your physical body needs. Okay, so it's going to be a fun episode. I'm super excited to at least get you started on this journey, because we could probably do like a whole season of episodes on this concept alone. But what my goal is for you today is, with some of these base level foundational pieces of the energetics and the knowledge of energetics behind you, my goal for you is to begin to understand how everything is connected in your mind, in your body, and in your spirit. That way you'll have the ability to embody a more authentic, aligned, healed, and transformed version of yourself. So if you desire to learn how your emotions and your physical body are connected, and also if you're eager to learn about what you can do to heal and transform your physical and emotional bodies, this episode is for you. So let's get started. And to get started, as usual, I want to have you ponder a few questions during the episode. So think about, are you able to identify certain emotions that you experience frequently? Do you find yourself maybe constantly feeling things like sadness or depression or anxiety or frustration? Do you feel some more frequently than others? And on the other side of it, in the physical side, do you maybe find yourself having recurring issues with certain organs or body functions? Do you have some chronic health issues that keep popping up for you physically? So if you answered yes to any of that, if you've identified an emotion you feel frequently, or identified some chronic condition that keeps popping up or you keep struggling with in your body, then this is going to be the episode for you, because we're going to talk about ways, again, to use both your emotional symptoms and your physical symptoms to figure out what's going on and to help you heal and transform. So I think as I was thinking about this episode, I think a great place to start is with an example to kind of just give you an overview of how all of this works. So I use traditional Chinese medicine practices and the energetics a lot in my practice. This is how I create customized healing and transformation plans. So I thought it'd be good to start with an example of a client that I recently worked with to help you understand what I'm talking about here with energetics and kind of how I used it with her. And then you can kind of use this example as we talk through the different elements and the different energetics here to really see how it could apply to your life. Okay, so let's start with my client, and we're going to call her Sherry, okay, for the purpose of this episode. And Sherry and I first started working together a while back, but when we first started together, she was having a lot of trouble moving her bowels. So she would strain a lot. She'd often have blood in her stools. She was, kind of chronically constipated. Okay. And right when we first started working together, I always do a bit of an emotional intake on my clients as well. But I always do start with the entry point of using food as medicine. Okay. And so we started to shift her diet, focus on nutrients to help her large intestine, and which is the organ that I decided to focus on. And she did immediately start noticing a difference. Okay. So all of a sudden her bowels started moving just by, changing her diet, right? And changing her supplementation. But it was probably about, 6 weeks or so into working together, and she'd been having all these good changes happening. Then, as life would have it, Sherry was faced with a really large decision that she had to make, and she ended up feeling like she made the wrong decision for herself. And she was grieving, a lot of that decision, and she had a lot of sadness built up in that decision. Now, I'll get into this more deeply here in a moment, but the large intestine is part of the gold element in Chinese medicine, but that emotionally is tied to grief. It's tied to extended sadness. It's tied to having a hard time letting go. So we'll dig more into that in a second. But for this story, I want you to know that immediately after Sherry went through this experience and was feeling this grief and was feeling this sadness, immediately she noticed her bowels were feeling restricted again. She was going from having, regular daily movements a couple of times a day back to straining, back to having constipation. There was a slide of time during this period. She went 3 days without having a bowel movement, which is painful. If any of you out there have ever experienced chronic constipation, it is not comfortable. And she went about almost 2 weeks struggling with these physical ailments. And during that time, again, emotionally, because I offer a lot of emotional support to my clients, because again, it's all connected. During this time, she was feeling a lot of sadness, a lot of grief, a lot of depression. Really, it was, it was an acute case of depression based on this decision she had made. So we had already been supporting her nutritionally. And during this time, she continued to support herself nutritionally. But I knew, because of the work with energetics and the work with the elements, I knew we needed to focus more on the emotions. And when we see these emotions come up and we see them causing issues in the physical body, an important factor is to find an outlet for the emotions, to find some way to express them and to feel them fully, and to allow yourself to move through them so we don't hold on to them and they don't get stuck in our bodies, creating these physical ailments. So I was talking to Sherry about this, and we were discussing different ways for her to honor her emotions. And in one of our sessions, what we decided that called to her the most was she decided to give poetry a try as an outlet for this grief and this sadness. And she started working, on the poetry and honoring her emotions, and letting them out in this beautiful artistic expression. And even, she admitted, some of the poetry, most of the poetry was very dark. It was some depressed poetry, but it was necessary for her healing. And after just over a week of her, continuing again on her nutrition, but also giving her emotion space, and honoring these emotions she was feeling through this poetry and through this artistic, creative outlet for her, she finally had this space, and she gave herself the space to feel and work through these emotions. And it was about a week or so of doing this, she got back into having regular bowel movements again, and there was no more straining, and she was even feeling lighter. Okay, she was feeling more vibrant, feeling more energetic, more back into feelings of happiness and truthfulness, and just feeling forgiving for herself for what she had moved through. So I share this little client story with you so you can understand, at least at a high level, how we can look at what is happening in the physical body, what the physical body is experiencing, and then connect it into the emotions that need to be worked through. And we use these two together in holistic medicine for healing and transformation. So, with that story in mind, I want to now, since you've had a great example, I want to teach you how you can identify your primary element that might need support for you. Okay, so I'm going to take you through a quick, very high level overview of the 5 elements, what they all include, and then I want to talk about how to work on them. All right. And what you can do once you've identified your primary element, and what do you do with that information? Because again, this is about expanding your awareness and getting more in touch with your emotions, with your physical body, seeing the interconnectedness of all that you are. Okay. So as I take you through the 5 elements, and I'm going to take them one by one, just know this is a very high level overview. I've really done my best to pull out the things I feel are going to be most helpful for you as you journey forward. And of course, if you ever want to go more deep onto any of this, I am offering complimentary sessions right now. Look in the episode description for that link. But for right now, I think with the overview of the elements, this is going to be a great starting point for you. And as I go through them, I want you to think about which one resonates most deeply with you, and as I'm describing what each element is about in emotions and physical body, see if you can find one that connects most deeply with you, because this is going to be your indicator of where you may be out of balance and needing support. Okay, so with that, let's dive into the elements. And again, I am keeping this as high level as I can because, this is stuff I studied for years. It is a lot and it is complex, though I think we've captured some key pieces here for you today. So the first element that we talk about in traditional Chinese medicine is the fire element. Okay, and the fire element, is related. We always have 2 organs, okay, a yin and a yang organ. The 2 organs associated with the fire element are the heart and the small intestine. So for each element I'm going to go through, I want to talk to you what they look like emotionally out of balance and in balance, and also what I see physically out of balance and in balance. So again, we've got the fire element, the heart and the small intestine. When I look at this emotionally with clients, when people are out of balance in their fire element, there are a lot of what we call energy draining reactions that are going to be focused around feeling unworthy of joy or happiness, feeling very resistant to change, being accepting of defeat. Okay, those are kind of the primary, what we call energy draining reactions for the fire element. Now, when it's in balance, I see people who feel very loving. They're very satisfied. They're joyful. They're enthusiastic and really authentic with who they are. So when it comes to the physical part of the fire element. When someone is out of balance, I usually see people with higher low blood pressure, which relates to the heart. They have trouble absorbing nutrients into their body, which relates to the small intestine. I've seen people with imbalances in their fire element. That have the condition SIBO, the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. I see a lot of heart disease in people because, again, it is related to the heart. Low energy after eating is going to be another fire element imbalance, which relates to the small intestine. But when someone's in balance, okay, they're going to have little to no issues like that here, okay? They're going to have a strong, healthy heart. They're going to have really good nutrient absorption. They're going to have really good energy after meals. So again, as you think about, and you can always, after I go through these elements, you can always go back and listen to them all again. Think about if any of these sound like you. So the next element I want to talk about is the earth element. And the earth element, the organs that it relates to are the spleen, pancreas, and the stomach. So when your earth element is out of balance, you may feel or experience being busy as an escape, having a lot of excessive concentration on things, or dealing with a lot of mental chatter. So the spleen, pancreas, and the stomach imbalances actually create a lot of mental obsessions. Again, it's that like mental chatter, like really focusing in on stuff, excessive concentration. So on the reverse, when that is in balance, when your earth element is in balance, you tend to make very rational decisions. You have a clear and calm mind. You find it easy to relax and to quiet your mind. So when I see people with the earth element out of balance, maybe someone who does have a lot of mental chatter or does often, make themselves really busy as an escape. Usually in physical symptoms, I see those folks presenting with things like acid reflux or GERD. They have low digestive fire, which means they have low stomach acid, and it can be really hard for them to digest foods. They might have trouble digesting fats or proteins specifically. I see a lot of nausea in this category, a lot of people who experience nausea during or after eating. I also see it at people who they feel hungry. They often feel very hungry, but it's very hard to satisfy their hunger. And also a lot of bloating after meals with an earth element imbalance. So on the contrary, in balance, I see people with strong digestive fire. They have a good appetite. They can feel satiated, and satisfied after eating. And there's a lot of comfort in their digestive process. So they don't have, a lot of digestive issues. So that is the overview of the earth element. Ask yourself, does that relate to you? Because next up is the gold element. And I'll say, I feel like of all the elements, this one, as well as the one I'll talk about next, are probably two of the main ones I see a lot of issues with. So the gold element is the two organs are the lungs and the large intestine. And when the gold element is out of balance, from an emotional side of things, I see people experiencing a lot of extended sadness. Sometimes chronic depression, sometimes acute depression. They have trouble letting go. They're focused on a lot of hurts of the past. There's a lot of grief, and they keep a lot of things locked inside. They're really unable to express their emotions. So on the contrary, again, when the gold element is in balance, I see people who are very forgiving. They don't hold on to things, and they're very truthful and encouraging. They have a lot of positive communication with others as well as themselves. And they generally are very happy people, and they're able to really live in the moment and live in the now. So when this element, the gold element, is out of balance, I see a lot of GI issues. So this is most common with people who maybe have IBS. Okay, so that's like fluctuating between diarrhea, constipation. Sometimes it's just constipation or just diarrhea. can be out of balance in people. I see the physical ailment of like asthma or chronic respiratory infections. A lot of times imbalances in the gut flora, sometimes even intestinal candida I've seen present when this is out of balance. And again, on the contrary, when it's in balance, I see really strong and healthy lungs. They usually have really good like lung capacity and, can do cardiovascular exercise without getting super winded. They have regular bowel movements, their elimination channel is open. And they're absorbing nutrients too, so they have a lot of good nutrient density in their body. So gold element, see if that one resonates with you. Now, next up is the water element. And again, I'm going to say in today's day and age, as I've seen it in my clinical practice, probably the gold and the water are two of my most primary I see that I work with. However, if you've been with me for a while, I do focus a lot on anxiety and depression. And depression is often related to the gold element and the water element, which are the kidneys and urinary bladder for our organs. When that is out of balance emotionally, there's a lot of anxiety. So hence the reason I see, the water element in my practice a lot. But so what more does it look like though? When our water element is out of balance, yes, there's anxiety, but along with that, there's usually a lack of faith, a lack of belief, a lack of trust. There's a big fear of the unknown that comes up, a lot of overwhelm, a lot of excessive worrying. Again, all of those are kind of anxiety traits and anxiety symptoms, but it does have a few different variations that it expresses as emotionally. So when it's in balance, so an imbalanced water element really looks like trusting in life's perfection and feeling faithful and full of belief that anything is possible and that you are, taken care of and you are being supported, and also feeling, peaceful and calm, right? And being able to, just have that deep level of trust and find that peace and that calm and that comfort, from that trust. So as it relates physically in the water element, when it's out of balance, I see, a lot of issues with the bladder, and the kidneys, which the kidneys are also related to the adrenals. So I see a lot of chronic bladder infections. I see a lot of urinary tract infections, but more so, I see a lot of high cortisol issues, a lot of issues with chronic stress, adrenal fatigue, adrenal exhaustion, hormone imbalances, and that's in both men and women. And, imbalance is kind of the reverse of that. When someone's water element is really in balance, physically, they have a very resilient body. They physically can handle stress very well. They don't have these huge cortisol bursts all the time. And they have really good, even, consistent energy throughout the day, which comes from, the hormone balance. So again, think over the water element and say, is that your element? So the last element I want to talk about today is the wood element, which the wood element is responsible for the liver and the gallbladder. So when our wood element is out of balance, emotionally, that's going to look like things like anger and frustration and impatience and complaining and feeling indecisive and maybe even feeling a bit timid. When the wood element is in balance, a person is going to feel confident and rational and calm and peaceful and very patient. So I do see this. This is probably the third one I see in my practice most often. But anytime I see a lot of anger and frustration in people, we go right to the liver and usually detoxifying it. But that's for another episode. So how does this present physically? I do see a lot of people with the wood element out of balance who are frustrated, who are angry, impatient a lot. I see a lot of high cholesterol. I see a lot of excessive toxin exposure, usually from kind of a congested liver. They're not filtering out their toxins properly. There's a lot of trouble with oxidative damage in the body because of that. And often there's a lot of inflammation that comes with that, a lot of achy joints and joint pain. when the wood element is out of balance. And I also see a lot of trouble sleeping at night when the wood element is out of balance. Also, interestingly, this is the element that if you have a lot of allergies or chronic red eye, those are two big signs that the wood element could be out of balance and your liver and gallbladder need some support. So again, on the contrary, a person that is in balance with their wood element is going to have really a really strong, supple body, but specifically in their joints, okay, and in all the fascia and the sinews, and they're going to have clear and bright eyes, and they're going to have really strong detoxification in their body, so they don't have a big buildup of toxins, and ultimately, they're confident, rational, calm people. So ask yourself, is the wood element your element? Does that one resonate and relate to you? So I know that's a lot. Again, I just went through the 5 elements here, and, go back. I don't know how many minutes ago I started talking about it, but go back, several minutes in the podcast, listen to the fire element, the earth, the gold, the water, the wood element, and see what resonates with you. Because I know while that's a lot, again, it's just scraping the surface. We could go on, but I think that gives you a big enough overview to identify, in this moment, which one sounds the most like you and which one can you identify with the most right now. And while I'm not going to get into specific treatment plans for each element, because then we would be here for a really long time, once you know your element, I believe there are certain things that you can do that will have success across all the elements. So now I want to take you through, for your own healing and transformation, some key things that you can do to really have success in using these 5 elements and the energetics to help you navigate your healing and transformation. So a few key things that you're going to need is going to be checking in on the frequency. Again, as we went through this, what are you feeling the most frequently? That's always the best starting place. And what ailments, if you think about the physical ailments, what ailments do you deal with chronically or most often? You may have already determined where you're at right now as I went through the descriptions, though anytime you're working with energetics, that's the first place to start is like, what is the primary? What is the most frequent? So asking yourself that is always a beautiful place to start. Now, once you kind of have identified, again, where your element is and what you're feeling most frequently, I encourage you and invite you to really, dig deep and sink in and find the root cause of the emotional side of it. So when you think about, let's say, it's the wood element and you are angry a lot, all right? Think about journeying into the emotional aspect of the anger and or any other emotion you're feeling, and ask yourself, why are you feeling it? That is some very key component to what's going to help you work through that. So let's say it is anger, and let's say you're angry because, maybe it's even resentment. It's anger and resentment because you're angry at your spouse for something they did, a couple years ago, whatever. And you're holding on to that. So now that you kind of have the root cause, that's when, as I shared in my client example, we've got to honor the emotion and give it space to come out. So whatever the emotion is, if you can identify why you're feeling it, give yourself a way to express that. I find one of the safest and most powerful ways to get the emotion to move and to come out is going to be through artistic expression. You can dance it out. You can do some journaling, some blog writing. You can do some poetry writing, drawing, painting, singing, playing music. All really good options. Movement is a beautiful way to get energy moving through the body as well. Getting a good sweat, getting in some joyful movement, or even just talk therapy, or confiding in a trusted friend or loved one. But finding that root cause, of why you're feeling that emotion and allowing yourself some sort of, again, space to honor that emotion is so important. With the keys for success here, you need to be able to support yourself energetically once you know what element you're working on. So there are certain herbs and nutrients and foods and even times of the day that are all related to each element and organ system that will help you move through the emotions. So while I cannot get into all of that during this episode, working with a holistic practitioner like myself, or there are many other gifted practitioners out there, but it really can help you dial in, to find what your unique healing and transformation plan is going to be all about. And I'll share a couple of specific things that apply to all of the elements that you can do to support yourself here in a moment. So the next thing is, as you're working on some of this, as you've identified your element and you're honoring your emotions and giving them space, make sure you are consistent with it. Okay. None of this is ever a once and done practice. So if you can focus on one element or organ system, usually the primary one that's, you're resonating with right now, and focus on it for a full healing cycle at least, which is 21 to 28 days. And then check back in on your progress. It's so important to remember things are not going to change overnight and it will take time. And setting this clear expectation with yourself as you're working on your energetics is so important to keep yourself feeling empowered, as you go through the journey. So 2 quick tips that I want to share that you can apply that are going to work on all of your energetics. Okay. First, kind of hitting it from the physical side. And that is, you have to get your body producing energy. And you do that with nutrients because the body needs nutrients to produce energy. So getting your body producing energy is the key foundational piece that applies to every single energetics. It's the thing that I always start with clients. So that is getting yourself on a medical grade multivitamin for energy production, including maybe things like magnesium, separate from that multivitamin, also getting in a lot of green foods for chlorophyll because that is needed for your energy production. And also choosing organic foods because we got to get those toxins out. They are not good for energy production. We want clean, healthy foods going in your body for your best energy production. Because I'm telling you, my friends, does not matter what element, what organ, what emotion, what physical ailment you're working on. A body that doesn't produce energy cannot heal. Period. So you have to get your body to produce energy if you want it to heal. Okay. So with that, those are key foundational pieces you need for any element, but more on the emotional side, that's kind of our physical side. On the emotional side, that applies to all of them. Focus on love because in all of the imbalance emotions that I shared, they all go back to the root cause of love pain. Love pain is at the root of it all. So if you take the opposite and you focus on love, focus on creating more love, acting more out of love, recognizing that you are love and all is love and I am love and you are love. And guess what? Love always prevails. Love is the greatest energy and it always prevails. So the more you can tap into love, it can be love for a place, love for an experience, love for an animal, love for your partner, love for your children. That energy of love will lift you up. Again, doesn't matter what's out of balance, doesn't matter what element it is. Love will lift you. Okay, so by focusing on love, by focusing on getting your body producing energy, with those nutrients, those are 2, super quick tips that will improve all of your energetics because it applies to all of them. So as a reminder, you guys, this was a lot and I know it. My episodes tend to be a lot, but that's because I love you and I want to educate you and share all this with you. And I know this information, that I'm sharing today will help you build the knowledge and wisdom necessary to expand your awareness, on what you need for your healing and transformation. That's what it's all about, right? Expanding our awareness on our journey so we can heal and we can transform. And remember, we're all so unique. We are all so unique, and not every single plan looks exactly the same. And so it is your job, to really tune in and have the awareness on what your needs are, and do you need support on the journey? Do you need to focus on yourself for a bit? Whatever it is. But when you really can dig into focusing on what you need, that is where we get to look at bettering ourselves so we can ultimately beautify our world. Well, again, I know that was a lot, and I hope you found all this information so helpful, tribe. Again, go back, listen to the elements, take yourself through what you can do to start focusing on them today. And I'm going to be over here holding a vision, like I always do, of you getting tuned in, getting aware of your energetics, and getting aware of how your emotions are connected to your physical body. Because I know that the more you expand your awareness and the more you heal and transform, the more it benefits us all, which is why I love it so much. And of course, remember, if you want support in working with the energetics, go click the link in the episode description, because I'm offering complimentary consults right now. So we can talk it through more there. But I really do believe, tribe, it is through this holistic healing approach with energetics and the 5 elements and all the other practices I share on this podcast, we truly can better ourselves and beautify our world, which is what it's all about. And that's why I'm here always to support you. Okay, well, that is all for today. Much love to you all, tribe, and until next time. Hey, tribe, thank you so much for watching. If you liked this podcast, make sure to like the video below and then click subscribe so you never miss an episode. And remember, I've got lots of free resources available to you to support your healing, transformation, and ascension, so you can help in making this a more beautiful world for us all. Make sure you check them out in the description below. Thanks again for tuning in, tribe. And until next time, much love to you all.